Okay, if any of you have never been to Mike Maloney's website, I would recommend that you go there and take a look and read what he has to say. He is one of the best uh, in the world, probably, in my opinion, at chart analysis. He is uh, very good at what he does. And so, anyway, I want to pick some of the things he has to say apart and show you how the up and coming events, how he has predicted these things from quite a long time ago, and how it relates to this up and coming crisis that I've been talking about, and leads into this crisis. Now, I've been talking about in my videos a deflationary spike event that could happen, and I think the possibility of this occurring is quite great. I called it a deflationary spike event, and what it actually is it's any one of a number of black swans could start it, and it's a chain reaction that causes a deflationary event that's very short-lived, and that deflationary event helps to push the hyperinflation into coming faster. Now, you have to understand something. If we do not get that spike event, which is a possibility that we could possibly escape the spike event, then the hyperinflation will happen anyway, but it might take a little bit longer to get here. The deflationary event will trigger the hyperinflation faster, and this is what Mike Maloney talks about: is this deflationary spike event. He's foreseen it coming for a long time now. He first saw the crash of 2008 before the crash of 2008 actually happened. So let's take a look first at one of the clips of Mike Maloney's right here.
Well, we still have not, we've had this threat of deflation when in the 2008 crash there was, and I talked about that. I said first there would be the threat of deflation, to which Ben Bernanke would overreact and do bailouts and stuff, and it all came true. And it's still coming true. He's expanding the currency supply right now. And the thing is, as we expand our currency supply and dilute the purchasing power of the dollar, our currency falls compared to other currencies, and the countries that are selling the U.S. a bunch of stuff, and their economies are based on that, they sell less stuff because their stuff is expensive in America, so they start printing a bunch of currency and dilute their currency supply, and so it's a race to the bottom, basically. The only thing that goes up in this scenario is gold and silver.
Okay, what I want you to notice about that clip is the reaction that Mike Maloney knows that the governments will have, including the Federal Reserve will have, to a deflationary event. Now, you have to understand something. The stronger the deflationary event, the larger the responsive reaction from the powers that be to put out this deflationary event. It's just like a fire. Okay, if they had a small little fire in a dumpster someplace, well, the response is not going to be that great. Maybe one fireman's going to come, and bring one of those squirt things and try to put it out, because it's not that big a fire. But if you got a 3-alarm blaze and it's burning up half of the city, your response is going to be huge. The response from the fire departments to put out the fire. Now, this is the way they respond to a deflationary event. They respond like it's a fire, and they try to put it out. Now, Mike Maloney, he realizes this, and he realizes the larger the deflationary event, the more the response is going to be. And so this is why this would all culminate in bringing a hyperinflation faster. A deflationary spike event. Now, considering the size and proportion of the credit bubble that we've expanded, when it pops, it's going to create a much larger deflationary event or deflationary spike event when it pops. And what I was frightened of, and it's not looking quite so likely now, but a couple months ago I was frightened that the elections in Europe could trigger a deflationary event in Europe that would correspond and come across the ocean over to America and burst all these bubbles faster than they would have burst all simultaneously, putting us into a tremendous deflationary event that the government's response to it almost automatically and very quickly put us into a hyperinflation. But now that Geert Wilders did not get elected, it's taken some of the pressure off because now it's starting to look like Macron is going to win in France and Marine Le Pen is not going to get elected either. That's what it's starting to look like to me. And if that's the case, then we've slid past that. But that doesn't mean we're out of the woods. Does not mean we're out of the woods because even if Europe doesn't cause a deflationary event, you still have an overbloated stock market and a housing bubble here in America that's just about ready to pop. You also got a housing bubble in China that's just about ready to pop. And the Chinese economy is bloated with debt, a tremendous amount of debt over there. So all these factors could actually trigger a black swan event. But now let's move on to clip number 2 with Mike Maloney and listen to what he has to say.
But what I see is that we're still in a big credit bubble. And Richard Duncan will be speaking about this in a few minutes. And this credit, all bubbles pop eventually. There's this giant worldwide credit bubble that's about to pop. And when it does, that's deflationary. And at that point, you should see all the world's central banks start creating currency like crazy, trying to get us out of this deflationary collapse. And then it's possible that we would go into hyperinflation. But
so what we can conclude from this is, now this video was shot quite a little while ago. Mike Maloney could see it coming, the hyperinflation. We're much closer to it now. The credit bubble is ready to pop, especially here in North America and in Canada. I mean, in the housing bubbles. I mean, just they're completely oversold, and there's also a student loan bubble. There's you've got a car bubble with all the people bought cars. I mean, they went around giving this long-term financing to anybody who had a pulse, practically, could have a new car. And so I almost call that subprime auto loans. You know, they had subprime real estate, now they got subprime auto loans. So all these things are coming around, and it's all a huge credit bubble. This whole thing is, if you listen to people like David Stockman, there's one little minor difference though between other people that know that this credit bubble is going to burst, and it's absolutely going to burst. People like David Stockman and Harry Dent, they can't see the hyperinflation coming on the other side. This is what would happen. They would be right if the government did not respond. If the government just sat there and said, so we got some deflation, and they didn't do anything. But you know that's not what they did in 2008. In 2008, just like Mike Maloney said here, he said that just the threat of deflation sent them into a flurry of activity of creating new monetary units. What do you think's going to happen this time when real deflation hits and they watch their empires sinking? They're going to do everything they can to protect the banking system. And they're going to do just like they did in 2008, and they are going to overreact. But this time, they're going to overreact not just in the billions. This time, they're going to overreact in the trillions. And so, Mike Maloney is right on all points. So, I would recommend you go to his website, take a look at what he has to say there. And he's one of the best chart analysis men in the world. He's got very interesting things to see. And thank you very much for listening. Like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next article.